Mega Man 10 was released on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Wii in early 2010. From what I can tell, people have always thought Mega Man 10 was one of the good ones, but it seems to live in the shadows of Mega Man 9. That was the kind of game that got people interested, since it being an 8-bit NES throwback was super novel at the time. Mega Man 10 was the direct sequel. Naturally, it's gonna have to do a lot more to stand out. But the reception to Mega Man 10, while positive, wasn't as electric as Mega Man 9, critics feeling like it was more of the same. And in hindsight, Mega Man 10 was the last new game that we got for over 8 years, making that issue more obvious. Today, we're going to talk about all this and more. But before I even think about it, we need to talk about how this video was brought to you by HelloFresh, a very popular meal subscription service. We all know that cooking food at home is often time-consuming and tedious, with the routine trips to the grocery store and trying to sort through different ingredients to make what you want. Ordering food out is costly and usually not as good for you. HelloFresh makes cooking at home both accessible and affordable by delivering right to your doorstep. And right now, they're also offering a bunch of breakfast options as well. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and the folks at HelloFresh agree. To prove it, all subscribers are getting a free breakfast for life. That means you'll enjoy a completely free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. Is that a steal or what? HelloFresh even offers veggie, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to make it easy to stick with eating healthier. They now have their biggest menu yet, with over 50 dinner options and even more market items to suit your lifestyle. It is also, like I said, cheaper than both eating at a restaurant and shopping in a grocery store as a result of their pre-portioned ingredients, meaning you don't waste money on an excess amount of food. To get in on the action, click the link in the description or use my code and get 10 meals free plus free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active if you're in the US. Outside the US, the local discount will apply. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now, having said that, let's get back into the show. I haven't played Mega Man 10 in a really long time. Like just about every other Mega Man game I've covered, I first played it back in 2015 and I did a Let's Play of it on my other channel a year later. Since then, I've not come back to do a full playthrough of this game at all. I've had to sample it here and there for video footage and whatnot, but never a full run. Personally, I always liked it. In fact, I remember thinking it was one of my favorite classic Mega Man games after completing the first run, but that was 10 years ago. I didn't really know what I was going to think of Mega Man 10 this time because these videos have shown me that there isn't a main series classic Mega Man game that I don't like. So, will I still think 10 is good? Yeah, I kind of figured I would, but how good? And how does it compare to the other games? Well, that's what I was curious to find out. Robots are rampaging throughout the city, and it's all thanks to the new menace, Roboenza, a virus that turns robot masters haywire. Roll comes down with a bad case of Roboenza herself. Dr. Wily then crashes out of the sky onto Light's lawn and reveals even he can't come up with a cure. But if they conspire together, they can hopefully find a cure. In the meantime, it's up to Mega Man to fight the infected robot masters and get back the stolen cure-making equipment that Wily lost to those mechs. Commando Man, Sheep Man, Pump Man, Blade Man, Strike Man, Nitro Man, Chill Man, and Solar Man. But he can't do it alone. Mega Man is joined by Proto Man for this adventure. At the start, players will be able to pick between playing as Mega Man and Proto Man, but also, as DLC, Bass was added as a playable character as well. Mega Man is exactly how he was in the last game. His gameplay is modeled after Mega Man 2. He can run, jump, and shoot, and that is it. Proto Man was playable in Mega Man 9 as a DLC character. Many in the comments of the last video thought I was unaware of this fact because I didn't mention it in the video, and to that I say, oh ye of little faith. I recorded it and then I thought it was better saved for Mega Man 10 because I thought I might have less to say about this game than Mega Man 9, and since that video was 27 minutes, I was probably right. Anyway, one of the reasons I didn't mention Proto Man last time was because Mega Man 9 was already a challenging game. Proto Man made it more so. I'll be real, I think playing as him kinda sucks. The main perk of playing as him is that he does have the charge shot and the slide that got removed from Mega Man's moveset, but the drawback is that he takes double the damage of Mega Man or Bass. To me, that is such a drawback that I'd rather just play without sliding and charging because the levels and enemies were designed without that in mind to begin with. Plus, it's the Mega Man 4 charge shot where it's really tiny. And then it has that thing from 5 and 6 where taking damage cancels the charging. Commando Man in Mega Man 10 was a nightmare to fight as Proto Man because I could never get a grip on charging my shots because the ground pound kept getting me and then the damage you take is just too high. Everything I don't like about Proto Man in these games goes for both. I just think the novelty of sliding and charging in these games doesn't do enough to make up for taking double damage. He's essentially the hard mode in games that already had harder difficulty options to begin with. Another thing he can do is using his proto shield to block enemy bullets while jumping, but I also thought this was pretty cumbersome to work with since you need to angle your jump to block the attack. It's not like the proto shield in Mega Man 7, which was its own item you could pull out and block shots with automatically. For those reasons, Proto Man is easily my least favorite character in Mega Man 9 and 10. You don't even get much extra story reason to play as him, or even Bass, since there's next to no new cutscenes. But at least I think Bass is fun to use. His gameplay was taking inspiration from Mega Man and Bass, so he can dash like Mega Man X and shoot in 7 directions. I mistakenly said 8 directions in my Mega Man and Bass video, but somebody rightfully pointed out that he can't shoot down, so it's only 7. Bass can't double jump in Mega Man 10, but he can do everything else he could do in that game, including wrecking mini-bosses that are tough as Mega Man or Proto Man with ease. Dashing works just like sliding, where you press down on the D-pad and jump, which felt really good to use. In terms of movement, it made Bass my favorite character to play as in Mega Man 10. The speed you get from dashing and dash jumping is more my thing than the pacing of classic Mega Man. My favorite Mega Man games being the X and Zero games should make that pretty clear. Bass can also use the treble boost from the start of the game to clear some of the more taxing platforming challenges. I think Mega Man's playthrough is the most balanced and the one I'd be most likely to revisit to get the authentic Mega Man 10 experience, but Bass is a lot more fun to use like he was in Mega Man and Bass. Also, small detail, but I really like how Proto Man and especially Bass get their own shops. That was a weird thing in Mega Man and Bass, how Otto made parts for Mega Man, but also Bass, despite him being an enemy. In Mega Man 10, Dr. Light and Otto help Mega Man, and Proto Man and Bass buy their gear from their own stores. You even get to see Tango from Mega Man V for Game Boy in Proto Man's shop. That was a good attention to detail. What I don't like is how everything in the shop for these two was more expensive than Mega Man's, especially obnoxious for Proto Man who really needs those E-Tanks, but either way, just like Mega Man 9, I spent all my resources on E-Tanks and figured I could do without almost everything else. But while I'm talking about DLC, Bass being playable was just one of them. You could also get 3 extra time attack stages based on levels from Mega Man's Game Boy 1, 3, and 4, each stage ending with a battle against that game's Mega Man killer. So that was a neat callback. All this talk of DLC might make you wonder how I played Mega Man's 9 and 10 for the video. Or maybe it didn't. Either way, that's what we're going to talk about next. As stated numerous times, 9 and 10 debuted on the 7th gen consoles and were downloadable titles on each system's storefront. I played my PS3 copies for my Let's Play, but on every system, Mega Man 9 and 10 were using this blurry bilinear filtering, so I wouldn't use that for my videos now. In 2017, these games alongside 7 and 8 were bundled together for the Mega Man Legacy Collection too. I'm pretty happy this exists because 9 and 10 were download only. This collection was the first time 9 and 10 were printed on a disc, meaning that when the digital storefronts go down, people still have permanent access to these games. It also has all the DLC included. You can unlock it by beating the games or by entering a code in the title screen. That's pretty great. But what's not so great is how these games look on the collection. The bilinear filtering is gone, but now this is one of the guiltiest cases of improper pixel scaling I have ever seen. No matter what visual option you pick, the health bar lines will be super inconsistent in size, which I think is hideously distracting. And sure, will most people notice that? Probably not, but it's my video, so to heck with it. Needless to say, I needed something else. So I was going to play these games on Dolphin, the Wii emulator. The 4K setting on the emulator made the game look pretty sharp, but then my friend Exo Paradigm Gamer introduced me to the no bilinear filtering patch by the GBA Temp Forum member Supersonic. And then he told me that to get the 8x7 NES aspect ratio, I could just set the custom resolution to 640 by 480, and bam, this footage is the result. You're welcome for that speech explaining it all. I will now begin reviewing Mega Man 10. Playing Mega Man 10 again has shown me that this game is pretty good. Truly, Mega Man 10 succeeds at just about everything Mega Man 9 did. Level design is one of that game's greatest strengths. My video went in detail on how the various stages built challenge subtly throughout. Mega Man 10 is more of that. I always start with Commando Man stage, and I like how this level features a tough obstacle, rushing sand waves that pull you in whatever direction it's going in. The challenge is then finding out how not to die during it, since the sand covers the platforms. Each room of it gets more difficult to navigate. Blade Man stage forces you to stand on these seesaw platforms, and this becomes more perilous throughout the stage too. Pump Man stage has interesting obstacles like water rushing down that you need to jump through without getting pulled into a pit. And it has a diverging route where you either do more of that, or go underwater and navigate a section with bubbles and spikes. But then when I think of how best to describe Mega Man 10 in a way that's different from Mega Man 9, my mind unfortunately goes a bit blank. Mega Man 10 almost entirely lives in Mega Man 9's shadow. This is pretty consistent when you look at how critics and fans talk about Mega Man 10. It's almost unfair, because ideally you'd want to look at a game in a vacuum and assess their design strictly on merit, but you can't help it. Mega Man 9 was new and exciting because it was going back to the 8-bit style and was tough as nails and all that good shit. Mega Man 10 is doing that again. The novelty isn't really there for the idea, it's just another Mega Man game. And we can get into it later, but franchise fatigue was a big issue with the Mega Man series in the 2000s, and Mega Man 10 taking 9's gimmick and just doing it again was emblematic of that issue. It also doesn't help that I don't think 10 is outdoing 9 at anything in particular. I think Mega Man 10 is underrated, but at the end of the day, it feels like Mega Man 9, but with less punch. Take the difficulty, for example. Critics thought 9 was maybe too hard, so 10 includes an easy mode and dialed the difficulty back a little bit. 10 certainly doesn't beat itself by any means, however, it's not asking anything of you that will trip you up if you love the challenge of 9. Like, Sheepman stage escalates the difficulty with its disappearing ground gimmick in the same way a Mega Man 9 stage would, and Nitro Man stage also builds the difficulty of the rushing cars in the highway in the same fashion. It's just that none of that really feels super intense like the swings of Jewel Man stage. Solar Man stage is the game's fire level, and it's good. The fireballs that shoot in a U-shape are a decent obstacle for a stage, but then, I don't know, Magma Man's level left more of an impression in both the platforming sections and the mini-boss. This one just got beat too easily. And you can look at everything Mega Man 10 does well, and probably find a way to say, yeah, but 9 also did that. That's just a matter of opinion. Some may think it goes the other way around, but for me, it's just a case where I think 10 does pretty much everything right, but 9 was better and fresher. The music is a good listen in Mega Man 10, but for every awesome track in this game like the interior of Wily 1, you have a track that I really don't care for, like Solar Man, which sounds kinda grating, when 9's OST was a banger from top to bottom. This game faithfully brings back the Mega Man 5 art style, just like 9 did. 10 also has hilariously bad US artwork with totally off-model Mega Man, Proto Man, Bass, Light, Wily, and bosses. It's actually a full mural for this game, not just one piece of art. I think it looks great in a hilariously off-model kind of way, but again, Mega Man 9 already did that joke. In-game, every boss and level aesthetic was firing on all cylinders in Mega Man 9. 10 has some ideas I think are cool. Blade Man and his accompanying old castle was neat. Strike Man is a sports-themed boss with a stage taking place in a stadium with some outside sections and interior parts with lockers that attack you. I like that one too. But then you have a level like Sheepman's, which is a cyberspace type vibe, but then I don't really get how Sheepman himself fits in with that aesthetic. He turns into clouds mid-fight, so is that like the digital Cloud? But then I don't really get why he's a sheep. The Mega Man wiki connects it to a sci-fi novel called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Since Sheepman is a thunder-themed boss, but still, I'm just saying that the theming isn't fantastic here. And for most of the rest, it's pretty typical stuff like the motorcycle guy having the highway level. The bosses were like Mega Man 9, where I thought many of them were interesting challenges and got their butts royally handed to them by the weakness weapons in super satisfying fashion, but then, the weapons were a pretty big downgrade from 9. Many were good to use, like Strike Man's. The ball bounces around the wall and becomes stronger the more it does that, and Blade Man's weapon allows you to just shoot 3 blades which shreds through enemies, but many of the others were difficult to make good use out of. I thought Solar Man's attack took too long to actually expand and hit enemies. Commando Man's wasn't practical in the heat of the fight since you have to stand there and aim it while it's active. When again, 9 just has a roster of baller special weapons, but credit to Mega Man 10, this game does bring the weapon quick swap back to the games, and that was super important because it allowed the pace to not be as start and stop as 9 could get with its menu system. But really though, I'm sure you can see what I've been getting at here. Mega Man 10's greatest sin is that it doesn't really have a unique claim to fame. Think of it like this. Mega Man 1 was the first. 2 gave us the 8 bosses structure. 3 added the slide, 4 the charge, 5 expanded the exploration elements and the charge shot itself, 6 added the rush fusions and had that globe-trotting art design, 7 streamlined the idea of rush fusions and made it a part of exploration and took the series to 16-bit. 8 took it to 32-bit with more story and voice acting, Bass added him as a playable character, 9 was the super tough retro throwback game, 10 is more of that. Proto Man was playable in Mega Man 9, and powered up for that matter. Bass was playable in Mega Man and Bass. So once more, 10 isn't really doing anything new, and it isn't creating its own identity that would give audiences something to talk about long after it's over. What is sad is that this game was apparently going to have a co-op mode. It never made it into the finished game, but modders have found a way to semi-restore it to playability. Having two Mega Men on screen or being able to play online as Mega Man, Proto Man, or Bass with a buddy who likes these games as well would have been interesting. Maybe it would have sucked or barely functioned right. However, learning this game was going to do a new thing was sad to hear because it didn't make it into the game and it left Mega Man 10 as a game that I genuinely think is good. I like Mega Man 10. I thought the levels were engaging. Mega Man and Bass are both fun to play as, but the game is bland if you're looking at it relative to other Mega Man games. But I'll give Mega Man 10 this over 9. The story is a little more interesting. I did think 9's plot was funny because of how ridiculous it was and how ridiculous it was trying to be. And while 10 features Wily working with Light again, and you obviously know it will end with a double cross, I thought the Robo-Enza thing was a more compelling plot than Dr. Light getting arrested in Mega Man 9. It is classic Mega Man. I don't exactly play this for story, but if you're a longtime Mega Man fan, you'll be left wondering what direction it's all going in. Specifically the fact that Dr. Wily has created a virus that targets robots in this game. Fast forward to the Mega Man X era, and that's commonplace. The Maverick virus that causes countless incidents during the X saga was one of the final creations of Dr. Wily. It was infused with Zero and transferred from Zero to Sigma prior to the events of Mega Man X1. I always felt like the evil energy from Mega Man 8 had something to do with the Maverick virus, and maybe it did, but Wily creating both a virus and a cure in Mega Man 10 seemed like an interesting connection for something more deadly he'll create later. In the present moment, I just thought the plot had cool moments. Proto Man actually thinking the situation was dire enough to require a direct team-up was already the game signaling the importance of the mission from moment 1. But then, Wily wonders if Mega Man has any Robo-Enza symptoms halfway through the game, but he's fine. By the end, it turns out that Mega Man does have it and is too sick to be able to stop Wily when it reveals, shockingly, he was behind everything and is taking over the world. But Roll never took her medicine in the event it would be needed for someone else, which is just the thing Mega Man needs to get back up and save the day. It's not much, but I thought it was a cool little story for a classic Mega Man game. Bass's run has no story elements until the very end, where he also gets the virus, and Treble is the one to save him. It's not as much of a moment as Mega Man and Roll got, but it's something. That leads to the finale of the game, and the same warning from Mega Man 9 still applies. Get as many E-Tanks as you can, because once you start, you can't leave the Wily Fortress unless you want to start all the way back at the beginning. Even though Mega Man 10 is not the last classic Mega Man game, it certainly could have been, because the final fortress here has a really climactic vibe to it. Wily Fortress 1 starts outside in the rain with kind of melancholic music, but then you're introduced to the stage's gimmick. This room has 3 enemies in it, each one mimics the attack patterns of a previous boss. In the first room, you fight Elecman, Woodman, and Gemini Man from Mega Man's 1, 2, and 3. It's kind of like Doc Robot in Mega Man 3, where it's an old boss pattern with a new body and weakness to a new weapon, just minus the difficult stage leading to it. This room is easy to deal with as the new weapon weaknesses work well with these old attack patterns. But then, the main stage begins and you get this sick-ass music. The level splits into 2 paths, but whichever one you choose, you then have to fight Ring Man, Napalm Man, and Flame Man from Mega Man's 4, 5, and 6. This room is easy too, although Ring Man is weak to the Solar Blaze, which sucks because of how slow it is to attack with. But that's nothing compared to the final room. You gotta battle Slash Man, Frost Man, and Tornado Man from Mega Man 7, 8, and 9. Sorry to MMB, it got left out of this one. This room sucks because of Slash Man. Frost Man is easy, but Slash Man just jumps around the room and you never know where he's gonna land, and his weakness is Chill Man's weapon. That makes sense given the fact that ice was one of his weaknesses in Mega Man 7, but this one only does 1 line of damage from direct contact. It does 5 if he lands on the ice, but you can't predict where he's gonna go, and the shot just never lined up for me, and Mega Man doesn't have the mobility to dodge his moves like he had in 7. So this one was a mess for me. And then, while easy to kill, Tornado Man was also a pain because his weakness is the Thunder Wool, which is super tough to land a hit with. With E-Tanks, it's fine, I just didn't feel happy having to use like 2 of them in this one room alone. Unfortunately, this is my favorite Wily stage in the game. The other 2 are alright. They do what's expected, they bring back familiar obstacles from earlier in the game, but with slightly more challenge, like the icy ground from Chill Man stage returning with a lot of enemies around to crack it, or the seesaw coming back in a room full of spikes. And it has new ideas, like a platform you control with buttons, which kind of felt like the anti-grav room from Mega Man 9's Fortress, just less interesting. The bosses kind of tripped me up at first until I just spammed attacks on the crab machine and then observed the patterns in the block devil. So it was pretty manageable after that. Then Wily Castle 4 is what you'd expect, boss rush and the first phases of the final boss. We've been over this boss rush thing a million times, so I'll instead just cut to the fact that Wily is pretty easy in this game. It helps that every phase of the fight has a weakness that does huge damage. I don't think I had to spare many resources fighting him, as he escapes to outer space. The final boss is also really easy. The chill weapon is the weakness and you have to hit the real Wily with it, but the fake one is obvious to see and the real one is defeated in no time. He then gets sick to the surprise of Mega Man, which I thought was odd. I just assumed he was suffering from a lack of oxygen in the void of space, but he's actually just got a fever. A few days later, he escapes the hospital to fight another day and is left behind all the Robo-Enza cures. Guess he's either a good sport about losing this world domination scheme or is so offended that his plan failed that he's canceling it full stop. Either way, the day is saved and all is right with the world. I've basically already given my opinion on Mega Man 10 throughout the video, so to sum up, I'll say this. Going into this script, I thought I was going to be pretty positive on Mega Man 10, and I would largely say I was. I like Mega Man 10, I think it's a good game. I wouldn't mind revisiting it if I had to, or I was doing a classic Mega Man binge, but it really is at the point where everything this game does well is something that another Mega Man game already perfected. That doesn't make 10 bad or inferior, it just makes its good qualities standard more than impressive. But it's almost like Mega Man 10's lack of identity is Mega Man 10's identity. To be frank, I don't think this game will ever escape the shadow of Mega Man 9 that it's found itself in, because giving the game the dedicated spotlight for this video has shown me, yeah, this game is fun, but 9 was more fun, so I'm going to more fondly remember that game. I also think this game has been given more of a spotlight than it was ever trying to get, though. Here's what I mean. This game was greenlit and made as a result of the positive reception and sales from Mega Man 9. It basically just is Mega Man the next one, done in the same style as 9. It was meant to be like all the other endless Mega Man sequels from the 2000s, but instead, Mega Man 10 became the poster child of franchise fatigue because like I said earlier, this was the last Mega Man game made for over 8 years. I've gone over this many times in the past, but Mega Man was a landfill of games in the 2000s. The issue with that is that the series was never a mega hit. Mega Man has always been an iconic character in gaming, but his games don't come close to the sales of other Capcom games like Street Fighter or Resident Evil or Monster Hunter or Devil May Cry even. DMC 2 alone has sold more copies than any Mega Man game ever has. It's not a popular series. They made so many of them because they were relatively cheap to make, and since the endless series of sequels are so samey and often reuse or repurpose assets, Capcom could pump out a lot of them and make back the money they spent on it. But as the 2000s went on, the diminishing returns and franchise fatigue set in as each year games were selling worse than the previous one. Critics always saying, it's another Mega Man game at some point in their reviews. Mega Man 9 being a breath of fresh air for the series. Mega Man 10 wasn't meant to be the last, it was meant to be another one. But after this game, Capcom cancelled Mega Man Universe, some weird FPS Maverick Hunter reboot, and most importantly, Mega Man Legends 3, a game fans were waiting for since the year 2000. This was a turning point in the series' history. At the turn of the decade, Capcom was going in a more profit-focused direction with DLC and making RE a COD wannabe and making DMC a Western-themed franchise. They must not have seen room for Mega Man in that vision. And while Mega Man is back now, as Capcom has changed a lot of their policies and returned their classic franchises to their roots, Mega Man is still not the same. Keiji Inafune, series producer, also left Capcom in the early 2010s, which meant nobody was there clamoring to pitch more Mega Man games anymore. All this really turned Mega Man fans against Capcom, in a way they still kind of are now despite the series being somewhat back from the dead, but it all kicked off around the release of Mega Man 10. That is what I think is 10's defining legacy, being the last game before the original Mega Man drought. It's a shame that I think a game that is otherwise fun to play and solidly designed was caught up in all that. But that's just how the cookie crumbled. But the story doesn't end there. Next, we're going to talk about how Mega Man was revived from the dead, starting with a video on my game that's not even a Mega Man game. Mighty Number 9 is going to be the focus of my next video, and then we'll close my classic Mega Man retrospective with Mega Man 11. Hope everyone's looking forward to those, because that's about all the time we have for today. So I'm going to close by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.